I'm Carmen Noriega. I work with the Resurrection Project, and this is what Katrina before us called one of the most important issues that face tiny homes, especially in Chicago here, is zoning. So we have two speakers here today. We have Danielle Metzer-Castle and Gerardo Garcia. Danielle is an attorney with Vedder Price, and prior to her work as an attorney, she, amongst other things, her other studies in volunteering, she conducted a multi-year study of the 1990 National Affordable Housing Act and researched the Community Reinvestment Act collaborations among mortgage lenders and neighborhood-based institutions. Gerardo is an architect and urban designer with Chicago Department of Planning and Development. Among his other work, he developed and led the implementation of the Sustainable Urban Infrastructure Guidelines, a 5-year sustainability plan intended to minimize the city of Chicago's environmental impact. So both these people bring a lot to the table as we talk about the tiny home community, sustainability, and how we can make it work here in the city. So please, without further ado.
So good afternoon, everyone. I do have a confession to make. I'm a fan and somewhat addicted to the HGTV tiny home shows. With that being said, part of it is I'm just amazed sometimes at how gratuitous some of these designs can be, and that people are really trying to make their tiny home as large as possible, and I just can't stop watching that. So a little bit about myself. I worked at the Department of Planning. I work in the Division of Planning, Design, and Historic Preservation, which is under the Bureau of Zoning at the Department of Planning here in Chicago. Generally, we're very excited and thankful to be included in the conversation. And we're always interested in hearing from folks, particularly in areas of innovation and change. And so very, very glad to be here. Really, anytime something new is proposed or city government has to consider a proposal that's not typical, there's a lot of hard work that has to, and follow-up that has to happen as a result. But really here to listen and look forward to the discussion here today and to continuing the dialogue after this with some of the local stakeholders here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Meltzer-Castle. I'm a partner at Vedder Price. I've been a practicing real estate and zoning and economic development attorney for the last 20 years. I grew up in South Shore in Chicago, but I also spent part of my high school experience living in a very elite and segregated suburb. So I've lived in a lot of different types of neighborhoods, and I've certainly had zoning projects in many different types of neighborhoods. My projects have ranged from obtaining special use permits for homeless shelters to working on Trump Tower downtown. Carmen, do you want us to just get into the substance here of the zoning? Okay, so I took the zoning ordinance. I only took about 2/3 of the chapters, and I tabbed it for every single provision in the zoning ordinance I thought was inconsistent with tiny homes. And here I'm classifying tiny homes as essentially the idea of you're going to have multiple small dwelling units on a parcel of land. That we're not talking about vertical small homes, we're talking about horizontal small homes. And what in our zoning ordinance is inconsistent with that? I think I used a whole pad of Post-its. So here are just a couple. You can't have more than one building on a zoning lot. It's going to be pretty hard to build multiple tiny homes on a piece of land if that stays in the zoning ordinance. There are minimum requirements for the average size of a dwelling unit relative to the land area, and essentially right now it's 500 square feet. So you got a little problem there. I mean, theoretically, if you had 2 units, you could have a 750 square foot unit and a 250, and they would balance out and be 500. But yet another technical rule you would have to think through. Then, of course, we have minimum parking requirements. You heard earlier about the sort of transportation-oriented development trends that we're seeing in the zoning ordinance that will reduce the amount of parking from 1 parking space for every single unit. But that is not universally spread throughout the zoning ordinance now, so certainly minimum parking requirements. Then even something like a setback, a front setback, a rear setback, side setbacks, constrain where you can have building mass relative to your land area. So that also, again, whether you're talking about tiny homes or any other sort of building form, is going to mean you need more land. You always need more land than you think you do to build what you'd like to build. I could go on. There are many, many more, but I don't want to monopolize. So, Carmen, here, I'll just put the mic.
One of the questions that I had was, how can we move beyond the resistance that we see in the existing code and bring people into the process of moving toward a solution?
So I guess it's difficult to talk about this in general terms. I'd say, every project, every proposal has its unique challenges and issues that need to be addressed or that need to be overcome in order to make it a reality. I'm not sure that the going through the zoning code and picking out each and every issue right now would be a productive conversation. But what I would say is that the department is open to hearing and learning about these things and trying to work with stakeholders or applicants, whoever that may be, to try to find solutions for some of these proposals. Off the bat, did some little bit of research myself before I came over here. And there is, and again, to your point, really right now the way the zoning code is set up is for individual units or single family detached housing on a lot that can get pretty small, but there isn't anything right now that would allow, like you said, for that level of density or multiple units on a lot, unless it were something like a planned development, which would allow multiple units. Again, there's certain triggers that you have to hit in order to qualify as a planned development, and it's a little bit more of a flexible form of zoning to allow for unique projects, so to speak. A lot of the vertical high-rises and things of that nature are reviewed by our department through the planned development process.
So if someone came to you with a planned development for a tiny home, you're saying that you would be willing to discuss how it might be navigated through the process? Well,
I think we'd have to. We can certainly have that conversation and see what are, where the challenges are. But, we'd rely on folks, zoning attorneys and developers and folks to kind of come to us with proposals and, tell us how they think it meets zoning or it doesn't meet zoning and work from there.
So I didn't just, in a cranky mode, tab every, single part of the zoning ordinance I thought didn't fit. I mean, I approach every single development proposal, again, whether it's a homeless shelter or it's Trump Tower, by going through the code line by line and figuring out where the obstacles are. And the zoning ordinance hasn't been written to demonize or leave out tiny homes. On the other hand, it is to promote certain types of buildings, and it's not written right now to promote tiny homes. So the other thing I did was think about the various mechanisms in the zoning ordinance for change, and there are a lot of them. There are map amendments, which can change what zoning district you're in. Those by themselves aren't going to help us. By us, I mean those who are interested in tiny homes, because I don't think there is a single zoning district in the city of Chicago that right now, as of right, allows tiny homes. Just like there's no zoning district as of the moment whether it's residential, business, commercial, manufacturing, or industrial, that allows a homeless shelter as of right. So you are always going to be in the world of needing some kind of special zoning approval, some kind of aldermanic buy-in, given the aldermanic prerogative, and some kind of community support, to echo what Katrina and I were talking about. And 20 years we first met doing zoning processes, extremely painful for Deborah's Place. Okay, so map amendments by themselves aren't going to do it. Now, your next option might be a text amendment, which is essentially to change the rules. And then you've got to figure out, well, the rules for which kind of district. Another option is this concept of a planned development. Now, not everybody gets to have a planned development. For those of you who don't know what a planned development is, it's essentially an adjustment of underlying rules for a very specific site. But the flip side is that you have to pass certain mandatory thresholds to do an elective PD, and a lot of times people are forced into a PD. Why would somebody be forced into a PD? Well, along with doing the PD process are a number of very special considerations and a huge amount of transaction costs. Now, I've done dozens of PDs. I love doing them, frankly. I think great projects around the city come out of the PD process. But there is also a limit to which these PDs can bend the rules. And I also want to add that the absolute minimum amount of land that you need in order to do a planned development anywhere in the city of Chicago, and you would have to find residentially zoned land, is 1/2 acre. And you also would have a minimum number of dwelling units that would have to be involved. So it ranges, but let's just say in the neighborhood of 15 to 20. So the staff at the city, I think, are fantastic about implementing PDs and finding really creative solutions, but they will also often tell you, my hands are tied. I can only deviate from the underlying rules so much. So to build on something Andy Geer said earlier, I think it would be foolhardy to try to draft a text amendment now to fit the tiny homes movement. I think we, the group, collectively, we need to find a developer, a site, a sympathetic alderman, and then tackle the text amendment and probably a planned development process to implement a tiny homes project. That's what I think is needed.
I think that the former point there is spot on, and I think to your point about city PD staff trying, working their hardest to work with applicants and make projects happen is true as well. So those two things, and obviously one point is more than just one thing, but those 2 points combined are really where I would start to try and make one of these developments essentially happen.
So it sounds like we need an organization that has thought about it and has a plan in mind, and if they were to possibly speak with another organization, put their minds together and then approach and say, here's the thought, how do we make it work?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So now we just need a couple of organizations to get together and put a plan together. Tracy would be right there. Do we have any questions from the audience for these two folks?
It's great to hear from you guys. I'm from Greensboro, and we're in the process of just what you all are talking about. It is a difficult situation because it's so new. But the way our zoning commission is trying to make this work is through a townhouse or a townhome community. Do you guys have that available here as well?
I'm sorry, could you?
A townhouse community, which is on a certain, acreage, and then the houses have their own little teeny properties around them, and then there's common ground. So that's exactly what we're trying to do, which fits into our zoning if we can find a neighborhood that will allow us to locate there. Do you guys have anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, townhouse development is a use here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Sure.
So possibly you could use that for your tiny house village?
They would have to be attached because the definition of townhome in our zoning ordinance are attached, and you could have no more than 9 units.
What do you mean by attached? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
They would have to
Shareable.
literally be like row houses.
Oh, they have to be attached.
Yeah, and if we got deeper into my Post-its, there would be limitations and things like building wall separation, and it would still, I think, you would need to dig deep into our code to
Okay.
adapt it.
Okay.
Again, not impossible, you guys, not
Okay.
impossible, but certainly a lot of technical pieces, I think, to adapt even the townhouse chapter for a tiny homes project. And again, with any text amendment campaign, you need to not have a text amendment so broad that it starts making you enemies because it empowers things that are beyond your mission and are very offensive to people. So drafting these sorts of text amendments it's tricky business because you want to basically facilitate this particular design or model, but not open it up to a very, very, very widespread implementation that would have potentially so many opponents that you would never get the initial concept through.
And I just say to your point about all the technical limitations that would have to be overcome, that's really, I mean, that's really where the money is in any development project, is going through those, working with your municipality and, coming to an agreement.
Hi, I'm Ethne McMenamin, and I'll actually be presenting tomorrow, and I'm not sure how many folks are going to be here tomorrow, so I wanted to just jump in. I and a group of interested folks are actually developing a tiny homes plan for Chicago, and so sort of this like, oh, gee, would that someone would come forward with an idea. So we've sat down with folks from DPD, and we've actually gotten really great feedback so far from Lawrence, who I know is no longer there, but Bennett Haller, who I guess was originally scheduled to be on this panel, and Brian Eisenberg from DPD, and we've had really great productive conversations. And so just for everyone in the audience, like, you have a partner in DPD, or at least we have so far, and we're really looking forward to continuing that work with you all, and that, just, working through these technical issues. That's exactly how we decided to come at it. It's just like, plop the idea in front of you and say, let's have a conversation. And that's what we've been doing, and we're really hoping to use this forum as like a jumpstart, because we've been a little stalled recently. But we've just, I've come in under the guise of a question, and I've made a comment, and I hate it when people do that, so I'm sorry. Continuing the conversation, it'd be great to just meet you personally and be able to move forward from here to do that, because there are people in the city who want to do this. We're cited, actually, I'm here under the guise of my church. I work for the Coalition for the Homeless, but I am doing this work out of my church, who's interested in seed funding the project, potentially interested in seed funding the project. I don't want to overcommit my pastor, but and I'm working with a community organizer, affordable housing advocate, shelter in the city, other folks who are generally interested in the idea. So there's work going on. So we're looking forward to having a great partner in DPD.
Yeah, let's touch base after. I work closely with all of those folks so we can continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandon Donatelli. My partner and I have started a company called Envaria Housing Solutions, and we're utilizing shipping containers to develop home. You've met us?
No, I've read about your stuff.
Oh, you read about it?
Yeah.
Well, we have a model home just outside of Chicago in Melrose Park, and we've talked to the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and numerous HUD officials, and we're really trying to find a way to develop some way to connect the dots, and getting the city together. We have veterans groups and hopefully some youth groups here that we think we can deliver very affordable housing, meeting great sustainable standards, but we don't have anywhere to go or a central kind of cog in this whole operation to deal with. Who do you recommend, and where should we start?
Call Rob and get some lots. Sorry.
We have everything covered. We have lots, we have land, we have everything, but we don't want to get that far and then run into the brick wall. And I know that's what we're here to talk about.
So when you say the brick wall, what are you kind of referring to?
County approval, city approval, getting through some of the, I'd love to see your sticky notes and what issues you found. So yeah, I'd like to talk to you maybe personally afterwards and find out, what we can.
So you two folks need, I'll hand over the mic, but you two folks need to talk to each other because there's no simple answer. There's no silver bullet, unfortunately. But yeah.
So I'm going to get in big trouble with DPD right now by saying his new boss is my old boss. Right now, I think the city is in an unprecedented moment of having a commissioner at DPD, David Reifman, who came from the private sector. I trained under him for 15 years, who really, really gets the intersection between private sector, public sector, wants to be innovative. I think the new zoning ordinance that was unveiled last Thursday is going to also be incredibly intriguing, and I think it'll get passed very quickly in a month, maybe without enough input from other people. But in any case, it is going to be a sea change in the zoning ordinance within a month. And the idea is essentially to draw dollars from downtown developers doing elite projects and then deploy the money that they've paid for their bonus FAR out into distressed parts of the municipality, which of course is most of our geography. But again, I think in terms of tackling innovative concepts, doing text amendments, doing a pilot plan development somewhere, David is going to be an amazing person. While we've got him, we'll go back to the private sector soon, but while we've got him, it's just an incredible time, I think, to launch this.
Thank you.
So it sounds like we have the window right now. We have the people in place who are the most open to dealing with what we're trying to propose here. And we have some people who are already in plans. They've already done some of that footwork. So what next things would it be best for the people who are just beginning the thought to do next to get to the place where this young woman is? They've already got a plan they want to bring to you. So what are the next steps other organizations that haven't gone as far yet can take to get there?
I mean, I'd say the fact that you guys have compiled this great stakeholder group is a really great first step. In my previous life, before I was at DPD, I was at the Department of Transportation as an in-house consultant. And one of the things that I was able to do or had the privilege of doing there was implementing a placemaking program, which was all about lighter, quicker, cheaper, and how to make better places out of our streets and our public ways, essentially. And so that couldn't have happened without definitely a stakeholder group of people in the community, people around the city who were clamoring for this for a long time. And so I think as a first step, this is great. And then I'd say certainly amongst yourselves, it sounds like obviously people are thinking about this actively and have proposals in development. To the last gentleman's question, there's no silver bullet. I can't sit up here and tell you this is what you do and you'll be able to build a tiny home. It's actually quite a bit of problem solving, which is why zoning attorneys are very well paid. But I will say, I will say amongst yourselves, you guys all have resources and diverse backgrounds, and coming together with these proposals and continuing the dialogue and the conversation that we're having today will certainly be a good step forward to hopefully accomplishing some of your goals.
Anything to add to that, Danielle?
Well, okay. So I don't shy away from the obnoxious or controversial. So I'm just going to say, I think to the degree, I know Katrina said she didn't want any toy homes, but to the degree you guys do your pilot with something that is as elitist as possible, the greater the likelihood it's going to get through. If this is pitched as something that is for the folks who are the most needy in our society, the door's gonna slam shut. I don't care if David's there or David Reifman's the commissioner of DPD or how much the mayor wants, you have his back. We live in a city with aldermanic prerogative. Aldermen are gonna be generally opposed to this. Some with great motivations will be opposed to it. Some with not so great motivations will be opposed to this. And you may, as a movement, may want to really think about putting your eggs, in the first basket on something that's elite and cute and hippie and millennial and Logan Square-esque, but rather than something that is for homeless teens with, you can fill in the blank of the sectors of society that become the victims of not in my backyard. That is my really, really brutal assessment and honest opinion. Not that what I've just said is a good thing. I just think it's a reality.
I wanted to ask a question from someone at our table. Since there is this rewrite happening, is there anything that would be suggested to be done in the next few weeks before that is passed? Anything that could happen even? Well,
I would certainly download it. It was released last Thursday, or you can email me and I can forward it to you. David's office, my guess, won't be the doorway in which to propose markups of it, but there are certain division heads, whether it's Eleanor Gorski or Patty Scudero or others, who I don't know how receptive they'll be, but those are the folks to whom I would send your markups of what you would recommend changing.
Well, thank you. You have been very helpful, have offered some good insights, and hopefully some work that people can take back with them and continue on in the quest to design great homes.